Let's learn a little more about how to create variables in Ruby. I'm currently in my terminal and I'm going to open up my IRB shell so that I can play a little bit with some Ruby. So I'm going to type in IRB and now I am in my Ruby shell where I can just write some Ruby. So as we learned earlier, any word that is not part of the Ruby language will create an error. So if I simply say hello and press enter, Ruby complains that this bare word hello is currently an undefined local variable or method. It's up to us to define a local variable or method to give this bare word hello meaning in our program. So I can set a variable by simply saying hello equals the string hello. And this line of code right over here defined a new bare word for our current Ruby session called hello. And this variable is a reference to this value, the string hello. If we think about why variables are even important, imagine wanting to print hello world 10 times. So I could say puts hello world, and then puts hello world, and then puts hello world, and this is kind of really annoying that I keep on having to type this entire literal string, hello world, every single time I want to print it. What variables really allow us to do is encapsulate data and create a simple variable called phrase, hello world. And now, every time I want to refer to this string, I can rely on this abstraction I created called phrase, which will store my string, allowing me to easily reference the value of my phrase. So that later on in my program, if I want to print hello world, I don't need to type out hello world anymore. I could simply say puts phrase, where phrase's value was the string that I'd set earlier. And that's what a variable does. It allows us to create a reference or an abstraction to literal data, as this is the literal piece of data, and this is the abstraction that references that piece of data. Variables are really common in Ruby, in any programming language really, because they allow us to not worry about literal pieces of data, but rather focus on bare words and adding new semantics to our language. So if I exit this IRB shell and I open one back up, what's important to note is that this variable that existed in my previous IRB universe is no longer defined in this current IRB universe. So I'd have to redefine phrase in this current program, and now I have that variable back. So that's kind of how variables work in Ruby. Another thing you can do with variables is reassign them. And I can say, I know about variables, and I get to reassign them whenever I want. So now phrase points to I know about variables and not to hello world. So variable creation and assignment in Ruby is very simple. You simply define your bare word, follow it by an equal, and give it a value. Variables can also point to any value you want. They don't have to point to strings. I can say that phrase is equal to 1, and now phrase is 1. So reassigning variables is really easy, and you don't have to worry about types or anything like that in Ruby. One confusing thing, though, about variables is imagine this scenario, where I have original, and I have it assigned to 1. And then I create a new variable called reference, and I assign its value to original. So now I have original, and it's equal to 1, and I have reference, and it's also equal to 1. But what if I change the value of original to 2? So original is now equal to 2. And over here, when we said reference equals original, the question that we're trying to kind of figure out right now is what's the value of reference? Because if reference pointed to the variable original, then when I changed the variable to 2, we might expect reference to be equal to 2. But if reference pointed to the value of original and not the reference, then reference would still be equal to 1, because when I assigned it to original, it didn't assign to follow this word but rather the value of the word at this moment in time. So let's see what reference is equal to. And it's equal to 1. This is called pass by value versus pass by reference. Variables in Ruby are passed by value, so that no variable will ever follow the value of another variable.